That question out of the way first. It's on the magical land of the internet. It's not a brick and mortar shop, at least yet. But as mentioned, I tie custom flies. I have an Etsy shop and an Instagram account where you can find me and look at all of my flies. But really what I try to do is do kind of what I'm doing here tonight, which is meet people, connect with new people, find out what people are fishing for, and tie flies for them, and hopefully they catch fish. So I do have some here today. This is kind of like a random sampling. But a little bit about me. I also am a Yankee transplant, sorry about that. But I've been here for about 25 years. I live in Greenville. I wasted about the first decade living in eastern North Carolina by mostly fishing for bass and ponds. I don't know why I did that. I've been coming here since I was a little kid, like a lot of other Yankee transplants probably. And it was always a dream, like, man, if I ever lived in North Carolina, it would be just a fishing dream come true. And so I moved here, and I met a girl that lived on some nice property with, a family that had a bass pond. And I wasted so much time fishing for bass, I can't believe it now, because about 10 years into this, I discovered the Tar River, the Pamlico River, the Pamlico Sound, and really it clued me in, hey, I should go back to tying flies, which I had done like the first 25 years of my life, and kind of let it go. I just wasn't doing a lot of fly fishing in North Carolina when I first moved here. So anyway, I kind of had an epiphany that, I'm gonna really, kind of get plugged into this and see if I can get back into fly tying. And met some really important people in Greenville, including Joe Albee, who some of you probably know, from Carolina Outdoor Journal. And he and some other people helped kind of plug me in and clue me into not only fly fishing, honestly, but just fishing, mostly the inshore side, but some near shore and coastal and sound type fishing. And, just my wife actually said one day, you're sitting here tying these flies, like, why aren't you selling flies again? And I thought, well, I do have a job that's not tying flies. But, I kind of fell into it, and it still is a side hustle for me, but it's really become a passion for me, way more so than when I was a kid. And I spent a ton of my life as a kid tying flies. It's obviously a completely different world. When I was a little kid, I was in central Pennsylvania. My dad was kind of a fly fisherman. I really wanted to become one. Like most kids, we had my grandfather's old German fly rod was in our garage. I always would ask my dad, can we take that fly rod this time? My dad would always say, no, we're not ready for that yet. So one day I took it. My brother and I were getting dropped off at the Susquehanna River to fish for smallmouths, and on the sly I took that rod out there and didn't break it, and caught some fish. And then all of a sudden my dad decided that he wanted to fly fish some too, and he was like, kind of became a little family thing. And we met a lot of important people. My dad would take me on Friday nights to a place in Carlisle where it was literally a fly tying night, like you guys have now, probably, except that Bob Clouser was there every single week. Lefty Craig was usually there.
You have guys like that too.
And I didn't really, Bob Clouser wasn't even really famous back then, not like he is now, but I got introduced to a lot of important people that really kind of let me know that there was something special kind of attached to not only fly fishing, but tying your own flies and either helping somebody else catch fish, or one of the best things in the world, tying a fly and you going and catching a fish, which if you've never done that, I'd still say that's probably the best thing that you can do in fly fishing is, instead of catching it on somebody else's, catch it on your own. Does anyone here tie their own flies, by the way? So you guys don't need these. I don't even know why I'm here. But so it's a passionate kind of endeavor. You really got to love it to do it. Tying a lot of flies for other people sometimes does become work, but then I remind myself that I'm messing around with flies and fishing hooks and talking to people about fishing. So it's way better than my day job. Incidentally, the reason that I came to Eastern North Carolina, if anyone cares, is I covered ECU football for almost 20 years. For the Daily Reflector in Greenville. I still work in media as my real job. I don't cover college football anymore. I kind of wish I did, but I don't really miss the travel. I never fished, by the way, because I travel for college football every weekend, and the best time of the year, obviously, to me anyway, is the fall. I would never fish during that time, so I don't miss that part of it. Thank you. So my life's better now because I get weekends off, and in the fall I can fish on Saturday and Sunday, and sometimes Friday. But anyway, so the fly shop, like I say, is something that's it's grown into a lot of partnerships with a lot of different people, and that's really kind of what I want it to be. Meeting people that want and need flies and that are kind of addicted to fly fishing. I've been able to meet a lot of those people, and it's been a lot of fun. So now I do a lot of living through them, and I find that that's even more rewarding when people, I've told probably 5 or 6 people here tonight, if you catch any fish on these flies, send me a picture. Like, that's probably my favorite thing is to see what other people can do. And working with people. I told someone here earlier that probably one of my favorite stories is about a very small fish, but when I first started doing the fly shop, a woman messaged me and said, hey, I live at Ocean Isle Beach. I've lived here most of my life. I've fly fished most of my life. I've never caught a flounder on the fly rod. She said, I try all the time. Can you help? And at the time, I said, of course. I said, absolutely. And I had no clue that I was going to be able to help her catch a flounder. But we worked on it. We messaged back and forth. I sent her a bunch of flies. I said, promise me you'll use this one first. This is, my best hope for you to catch a flounder. And literally within a week, she sent me a picture of her holding a flounder on the beach. And I felt like I had made a big accomplishment with the fly shop. Since then, I've met a lot of other people that fish a lot more than she does, and have gotten to tie flies for giant trevally, cobia, sailfish, you name it, alligator gar, and have a few people that get to unofficially serve as ambassadors, which means they're better fly fishermen than me. They take these flies out and catch awesome fish on them, and I get to sort of post those success stories on my, on my Etsy shop and on my Instagram, and they sort of get to be my heroes. So anyway, that's kind of what I do and kind of why I do it. I still consider myself like a student of this game. I mean, I still fish with a spinning rod a lot when I'm out there, as much as fly fishing is in my know. I caught a 30-inch redfish on that spinning rod the other day when I could have never caught one on the fly because it was blowing about 28 in my face. But I'm still figuring out that part too. I don't have my own boat. I fish out of my kayak all the time. I have a lot of friends that have boats, so.
That's the best guy.
Friends with boats are awesome because I just get to leave at the end. But yeah, so I'm constantly testing my own flies, but I'm always more excited to hear, I've sold some here today already, always excited to hear what other people catch on them. And I think that's kind of why I love it and why I keep kind of broadening my horizons a little bit. I'm slowly starting to learn some of the theory behind bonefish flies because I have a customer that really wants me to. And it's a really interesting way to delve into fish that you've never even caught before. I've never caught a permit in my life, but I've sure tied some permit flies. I know. Yeah, I haven't even tried very hard, to be honest. But I've sure tied flies for people for them to, and they have done. They have succeeded. So again, a lot of it for me is about other people's success. So I know it probably sounds like BS when you say that, but of course I want to sell you flies, but I really do. I want to sell you flies that actually work. And I love people that get back to me and say, this fly would have been awesome if it was 6 inches on a 4/0 hook instead of 4 on a 3/0 or whatever. I have one client in Virginia that travels across the globe all the time, and I'm about to tie some cobia flies for him. But the cycle sort of keeps going. I've picked up a couple orders here tonight. I tied some orders for some people that showed up here tonight to get them. So that's sort of my dream setup is to have it keep me busy. My wife doesn't love it that much, but to keep me
What's her
busy,
idea?
what's that?
It was her idea.
I know. I just told her that yesterday. It was like, as we do these things, keep in mind this was literally your plan for me. So I think she somehow thinks that I'm going to make enough money someday to quit my other job, but if you guys have any ideas about that, come see me. If you guys all want to become clients full time, that would allow me to maybe do that.
You got a permit fly that'll catch a permit. Be careful.
Yeah.
I do.
You got dynamite or cyanide on it.
Yeah, it's a flamethrower actually. Sight casting.
Can I
But
ask
yeah,
a question?
so
Can I ask a question?
yeah, and I was going to say anybody that has questions is probably an appropriate time to
See,
ask.
I can speak for these guys. You got people like me that barely know how to fly, and you got really good fly tires in this group.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get an order from Joe Schmo who's going to such and such location to fish for fish X, and they don't tell you what flies to tie, they just tell you, I want to go catch this
Right.
fish.
Yeah.
How do you research? Like, what's your go-to for identifying patterns and
Yeah.
techniques and things like that?
Usually it's geography and also have you ever fly fished before is usually a good starting point. But that's kind of what I mean. I try to kind of generate a conversation with each person and say, if you've done this or if you've fished a lot in your life, maybe you're new to fly fishing. It comes down to species. Where are you?
No, that's my question. Like they say, hey, I'm going to such and such location. I'm fishing for fish X.
Right.
They'll give you an order for the specific fly. They
Yeah,
just
and
tell
I'm
you
doing
what
that
they want.
actually right now. I
Okay.
actually have a challenge on the table that I'm working with, which is I have a guy in Alabama. I've sold him a bunch of flies in the past, and he's caught a lot of fish on them. But he is in a triple tail tournament on like June 7th, and he wants me to perfect this floating shrimp pattern because obviously triple tails hang out on up on the very surface of the water. And sit on crab pots and things floating in the water. So you really got to sight fish them, but you got to give them a good chance to see a fly and really on like almost a dead sink. So I'm still going back and forth with him right now about whether he wants like a wire wrap on there, whether he wants a bead chain eye, something to make that pop under those crab pots and fish see it. But so that's kind of what I do. Like I have never tied the floating shrimp the way he is, envisioning me tying it. But a lot of times though, if someone says, hey, I live in Emerald Isle or Bath, or I live on the Pamlico River, then I'm going to kind of step in with my own expertise and say, yeah, well, if you're going to fish in the fall when there's going to be a ton of bait around and trout coming in, I'm going to give you 2 sliders, probably 2 gurglers for the topwater, and 2 clousers just for fish finding on slow days. But I wouldn't say I have a 100% go-to. This is my inshore fly set. It does come down a lot to, again, what do you really want to do? And if I'm selling them in the middle of the summer, I'm going to sell them a lot more crabs probably. If they're fishing in the winter, I'm going to probably give them some more like attractors and help you find fish. All black clouser, the all white clouser are 2 of my most sworn things. Like if you have to catch a fish today, I'll give you those 2 clousers and say, good luck, But even, it's tough, but it's a lot of fun when they say, hey, I'm a beginner. I've never done this before, just like my flounder lady. I didn't know she was going to catch a flounder on that fly, but I knew it was a damn good little mud minnow / glass minnow collection that I gave her to throw right in the surf. And other thing to remember too that I had to learn is that when I was a kid and I was fishing like a mayfly hatch in central PA, you're throwing an exact color, an exact size. If you throw a size 18 hook and they're hitting a white mayfly that's size 14, they're not even going to look at that fly you're throwing. They don't even see it because they can tell that it's the wrong size. Here, fish don't have or way more aggressive for one thing. So you're throwing a lot of flies that are trying to attract them or see what they want. It's sort of like throwing soft plastics. Sometimes you just change colors until you find out what they like. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of trying to, if it's only 6 flies and they want an assortment, here's a few different situations for a few different kinds of fish. If they're only fishing for speckled trout, here's probably 2 each of my best speckled trout flies, which again, it's hard to beat a clouser minnow, especially for a beginning fly fisherman that wants to figure out what it's like to catch a fish on their fly rod, and they specifically live here and say, yeah, I want to catch a speckled trout. I'm going to probably say, yeah, here's a pink and white clouser, knock yourself out, and here's a few other, like maybe a topwater gurgler. But again, I think every case is different. Bobby saw my blue crab, which is one of my most go-to flies. especially for here in North Carolina. Saw that at the expo. We talked about it, and you know, he wanted those. That's one of my top producing flies. So it's, in a way, it can be difficult for maybe an expert to say, "Hey, you pick my flies." You know, an expert fisherman to tell me to do that. But I'm also going to throw them some things that they may not have in their box already, that I know are going to produce, as opposed to here's your first 2 shrimp
Sticky
flies.
fingers over here, watch out.
Oh, I know.
You never see them.
I know. I actually asked Bobby to leave those out so that everyone could see those beautiful blue crab flies that I was sold out of otherwise. But yeah, and that goes for here. If anybody you know, wants to have that conversation, tell me what you're fishing for, any preferences that you have. Like I say, it's really exciting to have that world of the unknown out there. And the triple tail guy, I've got my fingers crossed, but I've already told him, you know, I've never caught a triple tail in my life. I've only ever seen one, I think, one time in the Pamlico. But there are tried and true patterns and methods for catching fish in salt water that work in almost every environment, every application, unless you're talking about really, you know, picky fish like false albacore. As you guys probably know, there are 2 or 3 gotta have it flies for false albacore and a whole bunch of other flies that are kind of maybes, but if you really want to catch that fish, you're probably going with the tried and true couple of flies. So that was probably the most roundabout, rambling answer that I could have possibly given to that question.
So how do we order from you? How do people order from you?
Well, like I say, I'm on Instagram and Etsy. I have an Etsy shop. All of that is on my card. Both of those logins are on my card. So you can always message me on there. I mentioned to a couple people, I'm kind of doing a little bit of an overhaul of my Etsy shop right now. But you can always message me on there. I always have at least some flies on there. The flies that I keep on there are almost more of a guidepost to give people an idea of what's out there, what I can do. And again, sort of with the encouragement of, I'll cater to you, you know, your preferences. And I guess that's why it is fun with beginners, but it's also really fun when an expert comes to me and says, hey, I'm going on a tarpon trip in, you know, the end of May. Can you tie me some, you know, 6/0 bait fish, and some, you know, upper size gurglers? Like, you know, those are always fun challenges because I know that people that know exactly what they want, it's sort of fun to deliver those flies to them. And I was going to bring my big banner sign, but I'm kind of glad I didn't because it would have been really awkward in here. But it has a lot of good fish that other people have caught on my flies. But all those pictures are on my Instagram. So check me out on there, follow me on there. You can always message me anywhere. I check my messages a lot, more than I should probably during my day job hours. But I'll always get back to you. Even if you have a question, I answer questions all the time to people that aren't even buying anything from me, that just want kind of a recommendation. What should I throw? I'm going on a trip. Of course, I'm going to try to sell those people flies, but if they don't buy them, I'm not going to hesitate to, you know, to help facilitate as much as I can. So,
All right, big hand.
thank you. Appreciate it.